Welcome to Choice Cuts. I am the managing editor of ShockTillYouDrop.com, Ryan Turek, and today I am joined by William Bibbiani. How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing okay, man.
So we are now, when this episode airs, we're going to be 3 days into our Kings of Horror series.
Our monstrously ambitious, boy, do we regret ever even suggesting this, web series where for 31 days throughout the course of October, we're reviewing every single theatrically released Stephen King horror movie, but we did have to cut some out and we did have to make some hard choices.
Yes, we did, absolutely. Well, I mean, like we stuck to a certain criteria, which was theatrical releases, big screen theatrical releases, which is fine. Yeah. But for this episode of the Choice Cuts and the next one that's going to follow in the next week, we kind of wanted to look at some of the films that we might have missed and also take a look at King on television. King on television was very prevalent in the early 90s.
Well, I mean, it started out, it was the second Stephen King adaptation.
Right.
Was Salem's Lot, and that was straight to TV,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like, I wanted to kind of touch on those and look at the highlights and the lowlights of
which there are many, of both.
Yes, there are. So, I mean, basically, that's what I wanted this conversation to be, because no doubt you guys out there are going to be watching Kings of Horror going, why didn't the cover Stand By Me, or Shawshank Redemption, or
It,
or Tommy Knockers,
or The Mangler 3.
The Mangler 3.
To which I respond, you've seen The Mangler 3? Wow. You are very hardcore.
We got a special thanks in Mangler 3. I can't knock it. So let's start off. I mean, like, what was the first title that we overlooked that you would want to bring up?
Well, I think the funny one is that eventually on the series we're going to be reviewing A Return to Salem's Lot, but not reviewing Salem's Lot, because Return to Salem's Lot got a theatrical release somehow.
So messed up.
And Salem's Lot was, again, it was the first Stephen King miniseries. It was based on a second novel, and it's got a huge following. I read an article where they asked like Rob Zombie what his favorite horror movies are, and like in his top 10 was Salem's Lot.
No kidding.
Yeah. And the thing with Salem's Lot that's interesting to me is it's got so many great highlights. The child floating in through the window, or even just that one scene, because they made the main vampire more of a Nosferatu than in the book. But when he like drops into the family eating dinner, and that is a great scene.
Messed up.
And those scenes are so wonderful that I almost want to overlook just how bad a lot of that film is. And it's not terrible, it's fine, but it's very staid, and it's not a lot of, like, James Mason's really good in it, and Bonnie Bedelia, it's just lovely, but a lot of the film feels like we're just padding this out.
That's the thing, that's my only gripe against Salem's Lot. I mean, Tobe Hooper really brings a lot of great atmosphere to it.
Yes,
I mean, it is fantastic, but the problem is like you said, yes, it's very padded out. You get subplots for all these other side characters and stuff going on, and that is that's one of the reasons why I don't reach to it regularly, because I know it's a commitment. And I was like, well, let me just watch the highlights of Salem's Lot. But no, I love the look of Nosferatu. That look of the Nosferatu-like vampire was one of those images that stayed with me as a kid. I was like, remember thumbing through some books and going, oh my God, what is that terrifying thing? Salem's Lot is definitely terrific. I love that movie.
Yeah, and I think the other one that a lot of people think it's one of their favorite horror movies, and it's actually a TV miniseries, is, of course, It.
Yes.
With Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown and other actors.
Yeah.
And It is one of the... I find this is true in a lot
Curry and other actors.
No, it's great. It's got John Ritter. It's got a lot of great people in it. But here's the thing with Seth Green.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with It, and I find this is also true with The Stand. The first half is amazing, and the second half almost feels like, okay, we got to end this somehow.
Well, that's because it's inherently, that's the way the story is too, almost to a degree. The original story falls apart. The novel itself falls apart about, God, I say, there's that one main bully character, I'm forgetting the name, but in the book he attacks one of the kids and stabs him and stuff, something like that. And then I was like, oh my gosh. But from there on out, once it becomes a spider monster and all this other nonsense, you're like,
Although I always loved this kid, this is battery acid!
Oh yeah.
Like, if you say so,
sure,
I guess I'll die.
Super lame. But I mean, I remember It in the early 90s kicked off the kind of event television, for me when I was growing up, when it was event horror television. And it was like everybody, I remember after we saw the first episode of It, everybody in school was talking about it. We were all talking about how terrifying Tim Curry was. We were all talking about how scary it was. And I was reading the book at the time, so I was like feverishly trying to finish the book before the series ended, which was pretty hard because the book is so huge, and I think it was just a two-parter, right?
But it was like 4 hours.
Yeah, it was a 4 hour two-parter. But it was event television at the time for us, and it was incredibly strong. And so many great images, you know.
Oh yeah,
so
and that's
many.
the thing. It's another one where the highlights are so absolutely wonderful that sometimes I think people forget that there's another like 3.5 hours of the movie that is good. Yeah. Actually, it's a good miniseries. Don't get me wrong. It's a great miniseries, yeah. But it's like it's so front loaded. The nostalgic terror, like all the stuff with kids fighting a monster and the adults don't believe them, and all that stuff is just stunning. And then once they're adults, it changes, and it's not as effective. And I found that's the same way with The Stand, where everyone loves the first half when the world ends, because that's kind of what we were always.
Setup.
It's a setup, and it's nothing but fun. Yeah. It's nothing but playing with it. And then once we get to the real post-apocalyptic,
the drama of it,
the real drama of it. It starts wearing itself a little thin.
It also starts becoming heavily religious. I mean, like a lot of that stuff is
that's what it's about.
That's what it's about. But I mean, like that's the thing. It's like you're with the opening. This is my problem with The Stand too. Don't get me wrong. I love the book, but it's all that heavy-handedness that comes along with it. And it's like.
Yeah, but again, what are you going to do? It's got so much. You got to put in there. And honestly, we give Mick Garris, we poke some general fun at Mick Garris, but he does a really good job with The Stand.
Yes.
With I defy someone else to take what he had and do a better version of The Stand.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's just that I don't know. This is a really tough task to pull off, The Stand. My problem with it, the direction doesn't have enough punch. Yeah. I mean, it really needs. I mean, granted, they're all over the country. They're all over the map. I mean,
we think how many locations they have. They probably only have like a couple hours to shoot an entire day's worth of material.
Yeah, it's just the direction of it. I mean, I love that. Look, full disclosure, Mick is a friend, and I can't knock a lot of the stuff that he does, but
and he's listen, I don't
really nice
dislike
guy,
a lot of his stuff, but like he gets, I think there's a perception that he makes a lot of Stephen King movies, and that maybe he doesn't make them as well as some other people. Because again, he's working on TV most of the time. He's working with a limited resource.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, he really tries. It really goes for it. But I mean, like the problem with The Stand for me is that it's just like I said, the direction doesn't have enough kick. Some of the acting is a little rough too.
Yeah, I want to.
Molly Ringwald is like
off. Corin Nemec.
Nemec.
Oh man, Parker Lewis Candler.
Gary Sinise is good.
Gary Sinise is great. The Randall Flagg is great.
The actor plays it.
Matt Frewer.
Matt Frewer
is
perfect as Trash Can Man.
So great.
All of this stuff is great. I mean, like it seems like it's interesting now because we're going to see remakes of The Stand and It come along eventually,
Yeah, sooner than later.
But yeah, you think like as in terms of first adaptations, because we'll naturally see more, I think they're both great efforts. I think It is terrific. The Stand is really great. Listen, come back next week. We're going to be talking a lot more about a lot more titles. We're going to try to cram in as much as we can. Thanks for checking in at Choice Cuts, sponsored by the Carrie remake, I might add. And we'll see you next week.